Well, hello, this is Lula. Honey, Biegaj. Well, I'm 83 years old. I've been married several times. Those husbands have passed away. My last husband I was with 17 years. He was military for 30 years in the U.S. Army. I have worked several different places. I once worked for the John Deere Company. I worked for the Rice Company in Newport and an insurance company in Newport. I worked for a dentist for 8 years in Bald Knob, and I lived next door in a 2-story. I was born outside of Newport on a little farmhouse in 1940. We lived on the Burton farm. My dad worked for Burton. He drove a truck. And I had 2 older brothers. And then I had a younger sister. My younger sister had cancer, and she passed away 5 years ago, and is buried in Melbourne, Arkansas. Grandpa Honey worked at the gym. He was still working for Burton's. And he took care of the ginning of the cotton and showed us how it was done. And they have what they call hoppers that the cotton goes through, and it cleans it up and puts it into a bale. He didn't want us really to come to the gin. I remember him showing me where he walked across those hoppers, and it was so dangerous. They would pull the cotton up in there and clean it, and he would walk across there and make sure that it didn't get stuck, and if it did, then he would try to rake it out with his hands, which was very dangerous because those teeth that picked up the cotton and pushed it through. Jimmy Burton worked with him, and so did Mr. Bob Middlebrooks. Mr. Bob kept the scale, read the scales, and kept records on the cotton when it was first ginned, when it come in. And Jimmy did a lot of that too. He worked with him, Mr. Bob. The people come in with their cotton on the wagons, and they pull up on the scales, and they have to weigh the cotton. And then after they have the bale finished, it's made up into a bale and rolled out on the platform until they're ready to ship it on out. My brother got married, and he was living next door to the gin in a little white house. And he was working at the Burton store, which was just walking distance. My grandbaby was pretty young, but she knew when Papa started that truck to go home for lunch. And she'd run out to Papa and she'd say, "Papa, Papa." And he'd grab her up in his arms and put her up in the truck and take her home with him. Before they get home, she'd say, "Papa, do you think we need to get some ice cream for dinner?" And if you came up there on Sunday, which we all got together on Sunday at Mama's house, and she'd be sitting in that high chair with chocolate cake all over her face and all over her tray, and she was the cutest thing. Well, I can remember that he came home many, many nights, and he would just get home and somebody'd call him, and he had to go back to the gin. And in the fall, when it was ginning time, he would have to go back and work till they got caught up, because they couldn't run it without him. They always get in trouble when they try to run it without him, and so they'd call him to come back. It was a store for all the people around the Tupelo, because it was the main store. It was the Burton Mercantile store. One of the things that they carried seemed weird, but they had shoes and boots. They had all kinds of food. They had meats. They had bologna and big sticks. And other kinds of meat also. But they had just about anything you would need there. They had cold drinks and ice cream and a lot of different things in that store. When you first went in, the cash register was there at the front, and the counters and everything where you checked out. In the back, on the left-hand side, was where they cut the meat. And of course, they got it through the back door. I wasn't there when they got it. I don't remember that part, but a lot of people would go in there and get at the back there and have them slice some piece of bologna or some cheese or something, and bread or crackers, and that's what they'd have for their lunch instead of going home. Okay. They worked on the farm. On the other side, you stepped up and you were in the office, and I worked there for a little while. I didn't do much, but I worked in there with Miss Kenny Edwards, and she ran the office, and they let me work with her for a little while for something.